Tell me something else, Claude. You mentioned the riots in Los Angeles before. Did it surprise you at all when no riots occurred in Harlem or were triggered in Harlem after the Los Angeles riots? I know some people were scared that it might spread like an epidemic. Did it surprise
because
you?
nobody knew. You know, people, look, everybody who are in authoritative positions are actually ignorant of what riots are all about, of why the people are out there in the streets. It's like this idiotic thing that Mayor Wagner did. And when we had the riot here in Harlem last summer, what does he do? Instead of, if he had any kind of courage, if he were a competent mayor, what he would have done was to have made a public announcement addressing the Harlem community and stating that he would be at a specified location at some future time in the near future, and he wanted all the disgruntled rioters to appear there and voice their grievances. This was the way. This was the way for him to deal with the problem.
You think that would have?
Yeah, but he acted like an idiot. He runs from. He goes down. He calls down south for Martin Luther King. Who the hell is Martin Luther King in Harlem? You mean that old Southern preacher who's always going around talking about peace, nonviolence, let Ku Klux Klansmen hit you over the head with sticks, hang you, or shoot you, and that. So nobody wants to hear that nonsense in Harlem. Harlem is not a passive community.
Right.
People are violent. They've known violence all their lives.
Yeah, right. Well, how come if Wagner had said he was going to be there to listen to grievances, you think this would have stopped the riots cold if he had said that?
No, but it wouldn't have stopped the riots. I think it would have. It would have stopped them then and there, but providing he did more than just say that and more than just appear and forget about the people once he'd heard the grievances. And not only that, it would have served an even more far-reaching a purpose than simply to stop the riots right then and there. He would have built up a rapport between the Harlem communities throughout the city, such as, the Bedford-Stuyvesant area, and areas of the Bronx, and then Brownsville and Brooklyn, and there would have been a basis for future cooperation. There would have been no need for riots anymore.
So you think there's kind of rational causes for riots, is what you're implying? That's not
rational causes.
What is it? What is it?
Your
father called riots in the book?
Yeah, my father termed riots in the '43 riots when I was a little boy looking out of the window, thinking we had been invaded by the Germans or the Japs or something, and I asked him what was going on. My father said, "Oh, just a lot of niggas gone fool,
Yeah.
And like this was what a riot was supposed to be. But no, that has nothing to do with it. Like this is a riot. A riot is like the last resort, of the hopeless. Well, in Los Angeles, in those riots, the reason they couldn't find anybody to talk to those people is because they neglected them too long.
Well, they meaning both
the power structures, the white and the
black. The white and black power structures. Well, it's a tricky question, this business of the riots. I don't know. It's been suggested.
It isn't tricky. It isn't tricky. It's because you have never looked at it before. Nobody's ever looked at it. And as long as we can quiet it down, nobody wants to look at it. The riots are a good thing. Like they had the best idea in Los Angeles that anybody's had about any of the ghettos yet. Burn it to the ground. There's nothing tricky about it.
Would you like Harlem burned to the ground?
It'd be a great idea.
To burn Harlem to the ground?
Yeah, to burn Harlem to the ground and rebuild it.
Well, not really burn it, but bulldoze it and rebuild it.
Yeah, just demolish it, whichever way you prefer.
Well, somebody suggested that one of the reasons that weren't any riots in Harlem was that the poverty program has been working this summer in Harlem. You think that's true? What do you think of the poverty program?
The poverty program has potential, but they aren't even near to fulfillment of the potential that the program has yet. For one thing, it wasn't thoroughly programmed before it got underway. And for another thing,
thought out carefully.
That's right. That's right. They figured, all we have to do is give them some money here. The people who will be the primary recipients of the poverty program are only destitute materially, and all they need is some money, and money will solve the entire problem. And this was a grand fallacy.
Well, I don't think that was the idea behind it, Claude. I think the idea, in fact, that if that were the idea, they just would have handed out money.
That's what they did.
In fact, they were trying to do. Well, they handed out money to a lot of social workers. They didn't hand any money out to the destitute. The notion of, training people for jobs, a thing like Operation Head Start to get little kids in nursery school early enough so that they can overcome whatever handicaps they may have by the time they get to school, things of that sort. I myself don't know exactly what to think of this. You think that on the whole it is a good idea, that some of these programs are working, or you think it's all public relations, slogans, fake?
No, I don't think it's all public relations. I don't think it's all slogans. And I think that the people behind it in authoritative positions are sincerely interested in elevating the people of the blighted areas economically, politically, and socially. But right now, the poverty program, it's all bogged down in a lot of statistics. It's actually a war on poverty, and it's being fought like a war. In the poverty program,
it's fought as badly as wars are usually fought.
It's being carried out just like a military campaign. And the people are being neglected, for one thing, the people who are supposed to benefit by this. And another thing is that, there's always the hang-up in the chain of command. And there's so many different agencies involved that in order to cooperate with these agencies and for future cooperation from the agencies, they have to many times neglect the people. And before they can iron all of this out, it's going to take at least 3 years before they even know what they're doing with the poverty program.
Yeah, you think it's mostly an administrative tangle, but that the basic thrust of the program is a good one and could help.
Yeah, the idea behind it is beyond reproach. But it's just that it hasn't gotten underway yet.
Yeah, well, it's still
and
pretty new.
It still has a great deal of potential.
But has it done anything for morale in Harlem, as far as you can tell? I mean, is it?
Well, not yet. It hasn't gotten to the people yet. The poverty program has gotten no further than the Negro middle classes in all the Harlem throughout the nation. Just
well,
yet.
what about something like Harlem Act? Would you say that's true?
Harlem Act. What they've done, they've gotten the middle class Negroes and given them money and given them jobs and positions and said, well, everything is all set up in Harlem. Now go out there and take care of the children. Yeah, but there's very little that can be done for the children in Harlem without doing something for the parents.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, it's almost an actual antilogy to say, well, here's the money. We'll forget about the adults now and work on the edification of the younger generation that's coming up. These people live at home with their parents, these children, and everything that's done in Harlem Act with the neglect of the parents will be undone almost immediately by the parents in the home. This is idiotic.
Well, yeah, let's talk a little bit about the home. The statistics, I know you hate statistics and you hate social science and all that sort of thing, but there's a certain crude truth in these reports. Recently, a report on the Negro family was made, as the so-called Moynihan report. It hasn't been made public yet, and one of the things it stresses is the very high rate of illegitimacy in Harlem. I don't know, something like 44% of all births last year. And it talks about the difficulty of kids growing up with an absent father, which of course was not your case. You did grow up with a family, a father and mother, and sisters and a brother, just one brother, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you feel that this is a really crucial problem? I mean, from the way you look at it, say from the way you look at it as a Harlem kid, or do you think that this sort of analysis is misguided and?
Tell me something. Why do you think that various government, city and federal government agencies are always so anxious to come up with a report? You know, the people in Harlem don't need any reports.
What do they need?
The people in Harlem need people who are sincerely interested in them as members of the power structure. What they need is genuine representation.
Right.
And this is something which they don't have.
Yeah, but how do they get it? That's we started talking about that before. How do they get it?
How do they get it? They get it by the power structure, the administration.
Which power structure are you talking about now?
The general from the Harlem power structure on up. You know, throughout to the top, the federal power structure.
All right.
Yeah.
The White House on down.
Yeah, just go here and study the communities themselves. Don't sit around and give something to some psychologist who knows less about it than they do, actually. He's been sleeping in a book all of his life. They're going to give it to him and say, yeah, tell me about those Negroes. And all he gets is a psychological report that says nothing.
Well, nevertheless, it says something when you're talking about Harlem and you're wondering, for example.
I'll tell you what it says,
Yeah,
Norman. You
tell
know
me,
what it
James.
says? It says, well, here is the most recent word on the Negro community. And now you can take this and mull over it for another couple years and forget the Negro until that time. That's all it has said. That's all it says today.
You think it's this kind of evasive action? Is that what you're saying?
That's right.
Yeah, I wouldn't agree with that because a lot of these reports are precisely what triggered actions like the war on poverty, which are, by your own account, valuable, though they haven't really got off the ground yet.
I think recent riots and disturbances in Negro communities have had a much more pronounced influence on the war on poverty.
Oh, yeah, I would grant you that.
Any kind of report.
Yeah, sure, I would grant you that, except that this is the way the bureaucracies work. I mean, they've got to get the facts and the figures, and before they can decide on specific
don't get
programs.
any reports. Get the people. Bring the people into the Senate committee hearings. Bring them into congressional hearings. The people from the community. Don't bring any kind of psychological reports, any kind of sociological reports. They aren't even. These things aren't. It's all theory. They don't even approach the people. As a matter of fact, they tend to make the people even less of people. Here's just a mass problem. That's all.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I know that.
And I don't think they really educate any administrators who are sincerely interested in the community.
Well, you still, though, haven't answered my question, the one I started with, which is, do you think that this business of illegitimacy, of large numbers of illegitimate kids
Illegitimacy is no big problem, really.
Why not?
Because people will, look, you give people nothing materially, nothing spiritually. Well, what have they got? They've got instincts and urge. Sex is the most natural thing in the world.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that it's not a big problem.
It's not a problem here that the community isn't that concerned about it. If they're so concerned about you know what you're saying, actually.
Well, I'm asking. I'm not saying.
You're saying
not yet,
now,
anyway.
wouldn't it be nice if we could get the Negroes to accept what little they have in the ghettos throughout the nation and still not have too many illegitimate children?
Oh, I'm not saying that at all.
Why should the Negroes who've been so deprived in this country for so long worry about the power structures disturbance over the high rate of illegitimacy?
Nobody is suggesting that they ought to worry about the power structures disturbance. The question is whether this is a factor.
That's not the problem. It's merely a symptom of the overall problem. Illegitimacy, drug addiction. Why doesn't anybody say anything about drug addiction?
Yeah, let's talk about drugs.
Yeah.